Hi everyone, this is Alejandra. I like to have these cells where I can provide certain information and then refresh my tables based on those cells. For example, I'm going to change from February to January, go to my table, right click and select refresh. I have all the invoices that belong to January for city 3. Let's change the city, let's change for city 5. Right click, refresh, excellent. I have only one invoice that belongs to city 5 on the month of January. Everything was working perfectly until I decided to apply this criteria to a directory and a file. So I thought, well, for my users, it would be easier just to provide the name of the file in one cell and get or extract the information that they need based on that cell. But unfortunately, it didn't work well. So I got this error that I never saw before. So I started looking on the internet how to fix it. Fortunately, I found a presentation from Tanja Kuhn on the Saudi Arabia meetup that Faraz is so kind to host and share with all of us. So I'm going to provide the link on the description of this video, also on top of this screen, because I strongly recommend that you take a look to the whole presentation. I learned so much watching the whole thing. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I solve my problem, but also I want to show you how I connect these cells to my table and how I can make it work that every time that I change some information on these cells, I can just right click to my table or pivot table and I can refresh that information based on this criteria. If you like what you see here, remember to subscribe and let's get this done. I'm going to start by showing you the content of this file that is called Invoices January to May, that is inside of my demo folder on my desktop. And this has all the invoices from January to May, so I'm able to select the city and the month that I want to see that information from. So let's start from scratch. Let's open that file so you can see what is in there. As this is a CSV file, let me open this column, make it a little bit bigger here. So here we have the unit price, the invoice, the units. In this case, the first line has 303 units, the city, the purchase order, the currency, and the month. And we have several months, as I mentioned, from January to May. Perfect. So I'm going to close this. I'm not going to save it. And let's go here. Let me minimize this and this. Here I have an Excel workbook with some titles already there and some reference on the second sheet because we're going to use it. So the first thing, I have my titles for the city and the month, but I want to provide a list where I can select the item that I want to see. So to do that, I have a list of months, and actually my month, I'm missing May here. So I have January, February, March, April, and May. Okay. And I have the 10 cities available here. Okay, so let's create a data validation here. So I select cell A2, I go to my data tab, here on the data tools section, click here where it says data validation. Here I want to allow a list and I want to select my source, can click to that arrow up, and here I'm gonna say, what was that, the city is here. I select the 10 cities, enter, and I say okay. Here on the city, I can select any of the cities available. Let's say city 8, for example. Let's do the same with the month. On the month, on cell B2, I go to data validation, list. And here I'm going to say that I want sheet 2 and I want the month from January to May. I say okay. And this is very helpful if you want to control the information that needs to be entered here. So here I have my 2 entries. So I'm going to pass this to Power Query. Here, inside of any of these 4 cells, I go to data from table range, and this is going to become a table. It has headers. Yes, that's correct. And I say okay. So I leave that check mark on the headers. Power Query already changed the type. I don't need that right now. I'm going to delete that step, and I just want the source. On the source, I'm going to actually duplicate this query. Right click, select duplicate, because I want to create one for the city and one for the month. So my first query will be called my city. The second query will be called my month. Enter. So let's go to my city, select city 8, right click, drill down. Now I have that city well identified. That's all that I need. Go to my month query. Now let's go to the month. Let's say February here, right click and select drill down. Okay, that's it on that query as well. Okay, and I have my city and I have my month. Right click here on the query section, new query, file, text, CSV, and select the file that I just showed you, invoices January to May. Double click there. Power Query is going to show how that information is being split. In this case, Power Query identified that the separator of each column is the pipe, which is correct. And I can see how the information is showing me kind of a preview of that information, which is correct, and I say OK. Here I will have an additional query that is called Invoices January to May. Let's double click there, and I'm going to call this Invoices All. Enter. Okay, so I need to make some changes here. Most of the time I will be removing the change type step, but in this case I'm going to keep it because it recognized my data type correctly, and I need that to work with these two columns, column 1 and column 3. So I'm going to select column 1, press and hold the control key, select column 3. Let's go to add column here on the from number section. Let's go to standard and multiply. So what I'm multiplying is column 1 has the unit price and column 3 has the units. So what I really need is the total of that invoice. So I have the information through the multiplication. I don't need column 3. I select that, press and hold control, select column 1 and delete. So I press the delete key. Now I'm just gonna organize these columns. I want the month to be the first column. I want the invoice to be there. Actually, the first column is going to be the month, the second column, the city, the invoice, purchase order, the multiplication. I want it before the currency. So now I'm ready to rename my columns. This is going to be month, city. This is going to be invoice number. This is going to be purchase order. This is going to be invoice amount. And this is going to be the currency. That I really don't know if I need it, but just in case that I have other type of currencies later on, I'm going to just leave it. Okay, so as you can see, my information is ready to go to Excel. Let's go to the Home tab, close and load to, and I'm going to create a connection only. Otherwise, it's going to bring me all the queries as tabs, and I don't need that right now. I want that information here on the existing worksheet. So I select only create connection, and I'm going to say OK. Here you can see our 3 queries. I'm going to select my third query that is called Invoices All. Right click and select Load To. And I want to create a table, let's say on the existing worksheet, and I want it here on A6. Okay. These 2 tables are not connected yet, right? So I have April and I have all the cities here. Let's go back to our query, Invoices All. Let's double click there. And we're going to make 2 small changes. Let's create just a temporary filter. I'm going to go to the month column, click at the row, and select just April. I just need the code. I just need to get the code correctly. So now let's go to the city column, click at the row, and select city 1, let's say. Excellent. This is what I needed. So in this case, I have April as hard-coded, and I have it within quotation marks, so I need to delete the whole thing. And I'm going to replace that April for my month. Here, my month, right here. From that query, the result of that query, I want it here. Same with the city. I'm going to select the quotation marks, city 1, and the quotation mark that closes, delete all, and then now I want to have my city. Enter. Now, let me minimize this. And because we have in here March and city 4, once we pass this to Excel, this is going to change and bring the information that we are showing you right here. That's what is going to be in our table. So let's do that. Let me maximize this and go to Home, close and load again. And here our query is refreshed. You can see that we have March and city 4. Let me change the city just to make sure that our query is working properly. I can right click here inside of my table and select refresh. And now we have city 8 only. I can change the month as well now, let's say February. I can also go to my data tab and refresh all. and now I have February, city 8. It's working, right? So everything was working perfectly until I decided that I wanted to do this also with a directory and a file. I thought, well, if I can control that, let me open this in here. If I can control that here, I can ask my users to provide the name of the file here, and then automatically just bring that information based on that. But unfortunately, it doesn't work in that way. So let's try it. And to do that, I'm gonna open some of the information that I have in here, because first thing, I want to provide same thing as data validation. I want to provide all the files that I have available on my folder, inside of my folder. So let me go back here. Let's do that again. Now let me move a little bit more on this side. And here I want to provide on cell O2. I go to data validation, and I'm going to say that I'm going to allow a list. The list will come from my sheet 2, and it's this list. I'm going to say OK and press enter. So now I have all the files available here. So let's say February, just to select something. So this is for my users, right, to provide the information. But for me, for my query, I want to have these two cells combined in only one. So I'm going to go to sheet 2, that I'm going to rename it. I'm going to say this is going to be my reference tab, because it really has quite a bit of info there. So I'm going to say equals, and I want that equals my path that is on cell L2, and concatenate with cell O2. Okay, enter. So now I have all that information only in one cell. That's what I want to provide to my queries. So I'm here on I can select the F1 or F2. I go to data from table range, so we can convert this to a table, and it has headers. That's correct. I'm going to say OK. And this information came as a new query. I don't want the change type step here. I'm going to delete it. And the only thing that I want to do, as we did it with these other two queries, and I'm going to just go here to my directory and my file, right click and drill down. It's all that I want to do here, right? So very straightforward. Create a query, drill down, get the information there. Now let's create the query where we're going to extract information from each individual file per month. So right click, new query, file, text CSV. And I'm going to bring April. I have January, February, March, April, and May. So I'm going to bring just April, just to start with. Double click there. I'm going to see same thing. Power Query is bringing me a preview based on the first 200 rows of that file, and identify that this information is separated by a semicolon. In this case, this information is separated with a different delimiter than the other file. Honestly, I totally forgot if Power Query identified that, did it for me. Otherwise, I could have provided the pipe. So I'm glad that Power Query got that up. So same thing here. I'm going to keep this step because it has the same thing. It has the unit price and the units. So I want to multiply these two. So if I don't keep that step, if I go to the source, this is text and this is text, and I cannot process the multiplication with that info. So this change type is correct. So I'm going to select column 1, press and hold control, select column 3, go to add column, and I'm going to multiply. Standard, multiply. This is correct. Same thing, I'm going to delete column 1 and 3, select both columns, press delete. Same thing quickly, just move the month, the currency at the end, the city here. Perfect. This is correct. And the data types are correct. So let's go home, close and load to, and I want to bring this as a connection only. So I'm going to select only create connection, say OK. I'm going to go to my first sheet. Here I want to provide this info that is April. I should have renamed that query. Well, we will rename it soon. So I'm going to right click and load to, and I want to create a table on the existing worksheet, and yeah, I think L5 is correct. I'm going to say OK. So here we still have the information for the month of April because we haven't connected these two tables, and that's okay. That's what we are going to do. Let's go to April query, double click there. And let's rename the query first. So let's double click where it says April here on the query section. I'm gonna call that monthly reports. Enter. Okay, so as you saw, the other process was very straightforward and very easy. You replace the information that I wanted to be dynamic, and that was it, right? In my case, this table 5 that I need to rename as well. So double click there, and I'm gonna call my directory. Enter. So I thought, well, if I just replace on my source that directory with my directory, that would work. So if I try to do that, and I say my directory, go to the end, press enter, and then I get the error. I had no idea. So I'm so thankful for Tanja providing that presentation, because it really made a big difference. As I mentioned, the link is on the description of this video, so make sure that you take a look there, because you can learn quite a bit. So the solution that she provided is, she provided a few solutions, but 2 of them really are related to this specific computer, this specific machine. It will change any of the settings. It will be changed just in my computer. The problem is that I really want this for a user, so that user can change the file. If I apply the solution, I need to change that in his computer as well, and anyone else who uses that query. That's not practical for me. I'm gonna go with the solution that is modifying the code, and it's very simple. Remember, we had our directory that came from our desktop, right? That's fine. So let's go to my directory. This is the directory that I want to be dynamic, right? To do that, I'm gonna go to the View tab, Advanced Editor, and I'm gonna copy the 2 steps that this query has. So I select those 2 steps, Control-C, cancel. Go to my monthly reports query, and then let's go to View as well, Advanced Editor. After the let, I'm gonna give some enters. I need some room here, so I'm gonna Control-V to paste, so it's easier to see, and I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. So here we have, as Tanja mentioned, we have 2 steps called source. In this case, I'm gonna say this is gonna be my directory source. And as I change this, Control-C, this demo step is referring to my source step. I need to change it there as well. So my directory source. Here, I need to add a comma, because for Power Query, the last step doesn't have a comma. For Power Query to understand that that is the last step, in here, for example, doesn't have the comma. That means it's the last step. That's it. So, but here, because I'm adding this at the beginning, I need to add the comma, so Power Query understand that there is a step after this step. Okay, so, and then in here where I have my directory that didn't work, then there, I'm gonna delete that, and then I'm gonna provide the last step from that query from my directory that I just copy here. Okay, so that step is called demo. Remember that you need to be very careful with the spelling. It needs to be exactly the same that it says in here. So that is correct. I say done, and it works. so it really is not that complex. It's just to make sure that you copy and you change the steps, the name of the steps correctly, and then that's it. It's not that complex, but you need to know what you're looking for and what you need to do. So thank you, Tanja, because it really saved a lot of time and a lot of headaches. So now let's go home, close and load, and close and load again. And now this is going to be connected. This is February. Now it's going to present February here. And it's done. Now you can see that our table is providing that information, February, and it's presenting all the series because that's what I need. The only thing that I need to change is the month. So I click here and I change this for April, let's say. Let's go to the table, right click and refresh. And now we have April. We can do it again. Let's say I want January. And I can also refresh if I go to data, refresh all. There we go. We have January. It has much more invoices. And that's it. Thank you, Tanja. I hope you found this information useful. If you like it, please give the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also, share with anybody that you believe can benefit from it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.